What is up, everybody? Mr. Purse here. Welcome to 8.1. Hey, good news. This is our last unit. This is it. 3 ed puzzles, 3 videos left, including this one. We are almost at the end, and I will try and make this as painless as possible. This will get us through the end of May into June. So let's rock and roll. We're doing changes in technology and science. There we go. I'll move around a little bit here. This is our last unit. So a lot of stuff is going to be current issues, modern stuff that you're living through right now, or stuff that's just happened over the past a couple decades. So let's rock and roll here. There we go. Few things in this unit. Number one is there's been a ton of modern technology, innovation, advancements. And one thing that's happened is new modes of communication over the past, I don't know, 40, 50 years. Some of them are going to be obvious to you, but they're always good for like outside stuff in like an enduring issues essay. So I just want to point them out here. I think that these are in your brain, but whether or not you can pull them out on a Regents exam, I don't know. So a bunch of new modes of communication. One is communication equipment. Radios in the 1930s. We talked about the radio with Hitler and the rise of totalitarians in the 1930s, using the radio to spread propaganda, to spread news, to spread information. We also have the television, which is invented in the 1950s. Maybe right around the time of your grandparents being born, or give or take. So it helped also spread news, people on TV. You could see things and see people for the first time, for example, political leaders, and just the ability to watch people in the comfort of your own home. In the 1980s, we have fax machines. I don't even know if you guys know what fax machines are. It's this little device right here. You'd put a piece of paper through. So you can put a piece of paper through like this, and you put the piece of paper through, and on the other side, someone all the way across the world gets that exact same piece of paper as a printout. So it allowed businesses to communicate easily, people to communicate easily, send messages to people, specifically in the business world. Also, we have cell phones in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, and then the internet in the mid 90s, which really, really advances in the 2000s as we get better internet connection, fiber optics, cables, all that stuff. All of these things allow for better communication, and they allow you to communicate with people all across the world. If you went back 100 years ago, the only way to communicate with people on the other side of the world was a telegraph line. You'd have to be like boop, 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 and then it would come out on the other side. We also have better transportation. We have air travel in the 1950s, which is exponentially grown at this point. We have shipping containers, this ability to transport things on boats, to bring some, for example, products from China to come to New York, and then to be offloaded to go to a Walmart or Amazon warehouse. The effects of all of this stuff is it really has reduced geographic barriers. We are much more interconnected today. And if you think about like social media, like you can see what's going on in real time anywhere in the world. So it really reduces those barriers and brings people closer together. We're also seeing an increase in trade. You can be an American business owner and have factories in India, China, Singapore, all across the world. And you have the ability to do that because of this lack of, or this better communication. Also, the much bigger ability to spread news and information, whether that's a good thing with news and just being aware of what's going on, and also being able to spread fake news and propaganda and images and things that aren't necessarily real. So these new modes of communication are hugely important. It should be pretty obvious to you how these all are affected. But we also have medical advances. So it's our second one. So one, new communication technology. Two, medical advances. People are just living longer because of better medical care. We're having this huge, between antibiotics and vaccinations and better cancer treatments. There's a lot of ways that people are living longer. We also have healthier diets. We're more aware of what we're putting into our bodies and trying to live and exercise and whatnot. So we have this huge increase in people living longer as a result of medical advancements and awareness and whatnot. Another reason why we have people living longer and we have more people is we have better agricultural production. So people are living longer because we are producing food at a better rate, at a higher rate than we used to in the past. And in the 1970s, there's something called the Green Revolution. Think of green like grass or like food. And in this case, there's a bunch of new scientific technologies. I'm going to move myself over here again. There's a bunch of new scientific technologies that lead to the development of better chemicals and better fertilizers and better what are known as GMOs, genetically modified organisms, that help produce and withstand drought, withstand floods, withstand insects, and it allows more production of food. This is mainly going to happen in non-industrialized countries. So we're not talking about necessarily the United States or Europe. We're really talking about countries that you can see up here. So Mexico, a lot of countries in Asia. And as a result of this, one of the themes in history is the more food you have, the more people are going to be born, because healthy people Happy people who are eating food are more likely to have kids, and those kids are able to live because of better food production. So, as a result of this, we're going to see an increase in population because of one, the scientific, the medical advancements, and two, this better agricultural production. And over the past 100 years, and this is all kind of just a story if you're not following along here. So, we have better food production, better vaccines and science and medical care. And as a result, we have this huge increase in population where in 1800 we had 1 billion people roughly in the world. We are now up to 8 billion people in 2024, and it's projected by 2048 we'll have 9 billion people. This increase in people is great. Less people are dying. That's a good thing, but it also has a negative side to it. We have a huge strain on natural resources around the world, both in terms of land use as well as water scarcity. And by water scarcity, I mean water. Let me move myself over here. I'm moving all around today. Water scarcity as who has water, who has control over water, who has access to water. And if you look here, just in terms of around the world, anything in dark blue are areas where there is a major, major water scarcity. And even in the United States today, out in the Southwest, there's issues over will we have water scarcity at some point? And by scarcity, I mean it's just not around. And which state in the United States in the Southwest controls water flow and water supplies. And there's other places around the world that are really experiencing this at a high rate because of this population increase, because we're growing by so much. Also, a negative side of this is we do have some environmental issues that arise. We are because of this increase in population, there's clearing of land. For example, over here, this is deforestation with the Amazon rainforest. So the Amazon rainforest is growing hundreds of yards every day, or decreasing hundreds of yards every day. So we're clearing these forests for timber, for farming land, to produce more food and more products for people who are alive. Also, we have the increase in the Sahara Desert. So it's called desertification, where the Sahara Desert is increasing because of over farming, over grazing, because of the increase in population. So this is one of those negative side of things. Lastly, with this increase in population, we have an increase in diseases. And if I had taught this 10 years ago, I would have used HIV and AIDS as my only example. But you guys are well aware of COVID. The COVID spread in 2020 really came about because of this globalization, because there are people interacting and communicating and flying all around the world. That 150 years, 200 years before would not have happened. But because of this increase, and then you have to figure out there's a disease that spreads, how are we going to stop it? And the example that I have here is HIV and AIDS, which really first started in the 1980s. It was an emergent disease. No one had ever heard of it before. And in the 90s and early 2000s, it hits its peak of the number of people around the world who are infected. And the government, just like with COVID, governments have to figure out how to solve this. How do you protect your people? How do you make sure this doesn't spread and infects X amount of people? And in the case of HIV and AIDS, there was a lot of programs in the early 90s and 2000s where governments tried to promote safe sex. So the HIV and AIDS, which spreads through unprotected sex primarily, as well as blood transfusions of people who are infected. The idea was, how can we stop this and let's promote this? Let's do awareness campaigns. Let's talk to high school students and college students and make sure they are being protected and not spreading this disease. Similar to COVID, how we're going to wear masks, we're going to be 6 feet apart. We take extreme measures and then we kind of shrink it down a little bit until we really feel like we have a handle on it. And that's what I got. That's super easy today. That's the one of 3 in this unit. We're going to roll through this. And we're going to crush it. I'm going to keep everything short in this unit. You got any questions? Write it down. Let me know. I'm out.